For a strategic projection into the outlook of the G20 summit, I'm now being joined by a global affairs analyst, Ejike Okpavazum from Dallas, Texas. It's another G20 summit amid the war in Ukraine and coups in Africa. What really are your expectations?
Thank you for having me. I don't have any expectations of the G7. I mean, you go back to all the summits they have had and all the promises they have made, how much or how many of those things have come through. This is basically a pageant of nations or those who are members of that group showing up to create a sense of a barrier to entry. Making those who are not members to think that you're missing something. Maybe there are. Um, you know, G7 or G7 or G20, however number they're attached to that. They are not serious about global development or global peace. China saying we're not going to participate or we're avoiding it, maybe they have their own reason. So I'm hoping that the African nations that are 54 in number that constitute the largest group of nations, in the world begin to look at these things and say, we can't just be waiting to be invited.
We'll get to that. We'll get to that, Mr. Okpa. Let's talk about the fact that Joe Biden, the U.S. president, will be in attendance, while his counterpart from China, Xi Jinping, will not be there. Do you see this have any impact on the outcome of the event?
No, I don't. I don't say it is another ego exercise they are doing. China said I'm not going to show up, and then Biden is saying I'm disappointed because again, it's one of those things they use to show the world we are the ones to look up to or look at. So it doesn't make any difference to me. Again, when they do those gatherings, how many days do they really spend it doing those things? They take a picture, they issue a communique, and nothing happens.
Well, for the summit, for the summit, New Delhi, the capital of India, is actually wearing a new look, and this has cost about $120 million. But you know what? It does seem that this is at the expense of the poor who are complaining of displacement and the fact that they have actually been erased. How do you react to that?
Well, again, it's a typical thing. Before I left Nigeria for US, anytime a foreign dignitary shows up, the streets of Lagos get cleaned. As soon as they leave, the trash start to pile up. So India is a very filthy nation. I don't know what I've been there. India is very dirty. So in order to create this false impression at the expense of their own poor people, don't forget 99% and 95% of Indians are poorer than everybody in Africa. But in order to put up a show and look at we are hosting this group of nations, we're going to clean up our streets. So it doesn't impress me. The reality is still the reality. 2 days after they're gone, then everybody goes back to whatever it is they're comfortable doing. So that's the case. I just hope again that nations begin to demand. We are no longer in the 18th, 19th century where we have to wait. We are nations were colonized. Now we are independent. You are entitled to grow at your pace, and you are entitled to seek partnership. When you're in a partnership, what does it mean? It's not a master-servant relationship. It is a partnership, where both of you are joined in some kind of way to go for something that will benefit both sides. So what you have seen in the world today is still a master-servant relationship. And so, some countries that haven't gotten it, and I don't even think they will get it. So again, my thing is for the African nations to pull back and look at themselves in the eyes and say, why are we always chasing and running after people and we don't catch, we still catch the rear of them? Pull back, demand.
Okay, and talking about Africa, really, we know that President Bola Tinubu of Nigeria will be attending, and that's on the invitation of the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Do you think that Nigeria should actually be considering being a part of the group of 20, or, should there be some other option?
Well, again, India, that's a courtesy invitation. I remember at a time back in the 70s or 80s, India tried to form a group called the Non-Aligned Nation, and Nigeria, was part of that. Now, India is the world's largest democracy. Nigeria is the largest democracy in Africa. But look at the two nations. With all the resources they have in weight in terms of human resources. China, that is a communist nation, has more traction, better reputation and credibility than India. So Tinubu going over there, that's fine. He's having hunger to be to show up somewhere. But what is the substance? What is he going to get out of it? It's not the G7 that is inviting him. It's India, so he's not even going to be in the lineup when pictures are taken. So again, if he has pride for Nigeria, he's saying, "No, thank you. Send your foreign minister or send your minister for economic development. Stay at home and address the country." All this, running around the nations, showing up with white people or other Asians when your own house is in disarray is a shame. He doesn't have to go. But again, I'm not him. And then the people, his advisors are so happy that he's showing up somewhere.
Mr. Okpa, you know that the president does have a deputy who, would definitely be handling affairs while he's away. And as a matter of fact, the government has announced that those who do not have direct impact, those who do not have direct roles to play on the trip would not be traveling in this dispensation.
Yes, but I'm just saying, send your deputy. Sometimes scarcity, when you are scarce, you create some sense of importance. Look at what the Chinese president is doing. I'm not showing up. So send your deputy, send your foreign minister and, send them a letter, say, I'm busy at home, I'm taking care of stuff. But not to wear every little invitation you out there, showing up. It's not about showing up. What is the substance behind this thing? Is Naira going to get stability? Is, since Ngozi Okonjo-Iweala became World Secretary General of World Trade Organization, how much trade has Nigeria done? See, these things, they do it and they confuse us. And Nigerians get excited about it. At the end of the day, the proof has to be in the pudding, like we say in America. What are you getting out of this? If you're not getting out of it since independence, now begin to see how do you manage your appearance in order for you to get respect. No African country is being respected, and it's because they haven't shown since independence that they are able to be, to be independent in the sense of economic development, in the sense of trading with themselves, in the sense of coming up with a currency. If Africa were to have an African Union currency, forget the people in the northern part, the Arab nations. Look at the sub-Saharan Africa. If they were to come together and have an African-centric currency and say, that's what we're going to trade, and anybody who's going to trade with us, you're going to use that currency. And then you do an index of nations. And then when you do that index, you look at the interest rate that they charge in their various countries for things that they do, and you do maybe a multiplier factor and say, we cannot pay this sort of interest. So, but they don't do it. They are just running around wanting to go to, and very soon now they will all be in New York doing OLU.
All right, Mr. Okpa, you have spoken and you have made your point. Thank you very much. Ejike Okpa is a global affairs analyst. Thank you for talking to us on The World Now.
Thank you for having me.